finally, the handling of the money. Now, money's a big deal, right? You and I, we, especially here, Southern California, the lifestyle, the society, type of society that we live in, so much is driven by money. It's a big deal. We're all told I was told when I was younger, you're being told now, college, college, college. You got to go to college, and the reason is you got to go to college to do what? To get a good paying job so that you can make money. So that really is the emphasis of a lot that we do. And having money is okay. But the secret is this. The secret to having money is to control the money. Not for the money to control you. That's where a lot of people get it wrong. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, John G. Wendell and his sisters were some of the most miserly people of all time. Although they had received a huge inheritance from their parents, they spent very little of it and did all they could to keep their wealth for themselves. John G. Wendell was able to influence 5 of his 6 sisters never to marry. That way they wouldn't have to share the money with any family members. They lived in the same house in New York City for 50 years. When the last sister died in 1931, her estate was valued at, this is 1931, was valued at more than $100 million in 1931. Her only dress was one that she had made herself, and she had worn it for 25 years. 25 years. All of that money, and pinched every single cent, never using it. Now you might say, well, they didn't waste it and use it frivolously. No, they didn't. But just think of all of the good things that they could have done, or even the good things that they could have experienced. But instead of controlling the money, now they thought they had control of that money, but in reality, the money had control of them. And the secret is to not allow that to happen. Now, what I'm sharing with you in this chapter, some of you might remember a couple of weeks ago when we started it, I told you it's a very practical section. We're talking about money, about how to give it. And he'll continue into the next chapter telling us how to give money. But I think that of this section on money, what I have to share with you tonight is the most practical out of all of that practical instruction. What I share with you, and let me explain something to you. What I share with you is I'm sharing with you by faith. What do I mean by that? It's like, well, don't you always share by faith? Well, yes, I always share the Word of God with you with faith, believing that God's Word is going out, and that the Bible says it doesn't return void. It doesn't return, it always produces something in us. Okay. But what I'm sharing with you tonight, I have a very personal experience with this area of handling money. And I'll explain some of those things to you as we go through. But I want you to understand this. I want you to understand that I've been involved in ministry youth ministry for a long, long time. And over the years in youth groups, just like the one that you're sitting in right now, from those youth groups, I have seen leaders, God develop leaders through that. Church leadership. Some of those students went on to become missionaries. Some are still missionaries to this day. Many became church leadership, just in various roles. Either hired on as pastors at a church, on a church staff, or involved in women's ministry, or teaching the Bible in some capacity, or young adults leaders, like a college and career group, and taking groups to Mexico, because some of those students went with me to Mexico for those years, and then they, after I left and after they continued to grow, then they started taking groups to Mexico. And so when I share with you what I'm sharing with you tonight, and when I say that I'm sharing by faith, I mean this. Here's what I mean. I mean that I believe with all of my heart that from this group sitting here tonight, that there will be some church leadership developed out of this group. meaning that some of you, many of you perhaps, will continue to serve in church, will develop into some sort of leadership roles. That might be a men's group leader, it might be a women's group leader, it might be Bible teacher in some capacity, it might be a missionary. Some of you might end up being missionaries. Pastors, just various positions. I believe that as I'm sharing the Word of God with you, what I've seen God do from the past, I believe that that's going to happen. And so with that in mind, I share with you the handling of money, because it's a big deal in ministry. You've got to have money in ministry. That is the truth. That might sound weird to you, coming from a pastor, or, I thought we were just supposed to believe, just trust the Lord. Yeah, we do. We trust the Lord. And we trust Him to provide the money that we need to be able to do things. We've got a light bill to pay. I say we as if I have something to do with that. I really don't have anything to do with that. That's the office that takes care of that. But we've got a light bill to pay. The electricity to keep, the air conditioner going, or the heater going, or, to replace the carpet every once in a while, or to have a sound system and TVs and those things. And so there's money that's needed to do all of those things. Can you have ministry without money? You certainly can. You certainly can. Yeah, you certainly can. There are different areas of ministry that you can take part in that do not require money. But those are, to be honest with you, few and far between. So the things that he mentions here tonight, I am trusting, I am believing, I'm teaching this by faith, that some of you will be mindful. You'll take notes, or you'll take some mental notes. And that you will keep these things in mind as you continue to mature in the Lord, and as you grow into different ministry positions, and the handling of money comes up. You'll keep these things, and you'll be able to go back maybe in your notebook, or maybe find the video on YouTube and say, okay, wait, what was that again about giving, and what chapter was that? And let's hear some of those principles. So what he's going to do in this last section is he's going to tell us about the character of the people that were handling the money. Now, what is this deal about the money? What was going on? Let me just tell you that real quick. There were Jews in Jerusalem. That's a no-brainer. Jews in Jerusalem. That's who's in Jerusalem, Jews. But there were Jews there that had become Christians. And because they had become Christians, they were experiencing hardships, difficulties. They were being persecuted. And so what Paul is doing here, the reason he's even talking about money, is because what he's doing is he's collecting money for some guys to take over to Jerusalem to give to the Christians in Jerusalem. So the whole point is to give money, they're not giving it to Paul. It's not for him to put, gas in his chariot or whatever. It's not for him to spend on, the latest, sandals or whatever. What he's doing is he's collecting the money in order to give it to suffering saints or suffering Christians in Jerusalem. And so now he's gotten to this part where he's saying, okay, here's how we're going to handle the money. So, verse 16, finally, you thought I would never get there. The handling of the money. This is our third and final main division, verses 16 through 24. But look at verses 16 and 17. He says, but thanks be to God who puts the same earnest care for you into the heart of Titus. For he not only accepted the exhortation, but being more diligent, he went to you of his own accord. Never mind that reliable, because if you're taking notes, what you can write down for verses 16 and 17 is more diligent. It says it right there in the text, for he not only accepted the exhortation, but being more diligent. Being more diligent, okay? This is somebody that's handling your money. That's a good attribute. That's a good characteristic. You want them to be more diligent. Now, does anybody know what diligent means? Anybody know what it means to be diligent? Anybody daring enough to tell us, share it with us? Okay, what it means is it means to be industrious, that you are a productive type of person, that you're not just slacking off, but that whatever you're doing it seriously. So this individual, Titus, we find out about him that he was more diligent. And when they talked to Titus, they said, hey, Titus, where we want you to oversee this giving for the Corinthians, or the collecting. It tells us there that Titus, he got excited about this, and he actually took initiative. He was diligent, and at the end of verse 17, but being more diligent, he went to you of his own accord. He went on his own. He said, hey, this is what you want done? All right, I'm going to do it. Now, that's a good characteristic or attribute for any area of life. You find out what somebody needs, or a desire that they might have, especially in ministry. If you are working with somebody in ministry, you find out what it is that they need, and then you just go do it. Let me give you an example. When years ago, when I was at Calvary San Bernardino, one of my good friends, John Deming, he was the children's pastor. And every year we had VBS, and every year we had a family fall festival, just like we do here at Revival. Okay? And what I would do is, for those events, I would show up. Obviously, I'm there, I'm helping set up or whatever. But then during the event, I would follow John Deming around, because he was the children's pastor, so he's in charge of VBS, and he was also in charge of the Family Fall Festival. And what happens is, when you're in charge, when you're the lead person, whenever there's a problem, everybody comes to you. Now, it could be, hey, a little kid fell off the slide, he or she skinned their knee, they're hurt pretty bad. Or it could be, hey, the toilet is overflowing in the women's restroom. All of those problems come to you, because people, when they have issues, they're just looking for, who can I tell? There's somebody in charge, and they go and tell them. So what I would do is I would follow John around, and I would just follow. And when somebody came and they said, hey, the toilet is overflowing in the women's restroom, he was a servant. And John would say, okay, I'll be right there. I would say, John, I got it. And I would take off to go take care, plunge the toilet, and let John stay there to minister to the families and to the kids. That's what he did best. What I did best was plunge toilets. So you stay here, I'll go take care of that. Then when I was done, I'd come back, follow John around again, and find, hey John, there's a homeless guy out by the dumpster, and he wants to talk to somebody. And John would be he's a people person. Okay, I'll be right there. No, John, you stay here, I'll go take care of that. And then I'd go out and I'd talk to the homeless person for a while, and I just did that for each of those events. That's the type of person that Titus was. That's what we want to do. He was diligent. Whatever needed to be done, he did it, and then he did it well. In this case, it was the collecting of the money. Now, I also like in verse 16, it says there, but thanks be to God who puts the same earnest care for you into the heart of Titus. So Titus had the same amount, the same level of care for the Corinthians that Paul did. Paul loved the Corinthians with all of their problems, all of their issues, all of their hang-ups, all of their struggling in sin. Paul loved this group of people, and evidently Titus loved them also. That's another good attribute. You want the person to be diligent, but obviously an earnest care is a very good thing also. So we learned about Titus first. So if you're taking notes, the handling of the money, the subpoint under there was more diligent. The second thing that we find, this is a different individual, not Titus, but we find that this individual is mission-minded. I'll explain that to you, because I'm not just talking about missions and mission trips in Mexico or Nicaragua or wherever. I'll explain that. But let's read verse 18. And we have sent with him, that's with Titus, the brother whose praise is in the gospel throughout all the churches. Now, we have no idea who this guy is. You can take your best guess. You can do all the whatever you want to do and try to come up with a name. The name's not there, so we do not know the name. But that's something to take note of. This individual, whoever this person was, this guy, because it says that he was a brother, he did not need his name in lights. Hey, I'm part of the collection committee, and here's my name tag, or here's my name, and I've got this letter from Paul. Here it is, because he didn't need to throw around his authority. Whoever he was, what we know about him is this in verse 18. We have sent with him, with Titus, the brother whose praise is in the gospel throughout all the churches. In other words, all of the churches, the Christian churches, all in that area, they knew this individual, and what they knew about this individual was that he was all about the gospel. Now, what is the gospel? Does anybody know what that word gospel means? Yes, what does it mean?
The good news of Christ.
Yes, it means the good news of Christ, the gospel. This individual that was partnered up with Titus to collect money, he was all about the gospel. That's why I said that he was mission-minded. This individual was always on mission. Not necessarily that he was a missionary and he traveled to these countries and he did all of these things, though he may have done those things. My point was, in being mission-minded, is that his mission was always the gospel. It was always promoting Jesus. That was the main thing that everybody knew about him. You may know somebody like that. You know, they're just all about Jesus. Maybe it's somebody in your family. Maybe it's somebody at your school or on your team, or wherever it might be. But it's just like, man, they're just always all about Jesus. I would categorize that person. This is just me personally. I would say they're mission-minded. They're always on mission. They're always wanting to glorify Jesus. They want to do what Jesus did. They want to treat people the way Jesus treated people. Mission-minded. Now, why is this important when handling money? Why is that important? What I have found over the years, and here's where I share some personal experience with you, okay? Some personal, practical experience. What I have found over the years is that somebody may be very good at handling money. Very good. However, because they are a Christian and very good at handling money, maybe their own personal money, whatever it might be, does not necessarily mean that they would be good at working in a church and handling money. Let me tell you why. Because not everybody is all about the gospel. Not everybody is all about being on mission. And some people who handle money very well, they're all about saving money, pinching pennies. Which, listen, saving money is a good thing. We never, in a church, we never want to just spend wildly, and we don't do that here. We don't just spend wildly. You got to fill out paperwork and forms and all kinds of things in order to spend money here. So we don't just do it frivolously, willy-nilly. We don't do that here. So that's a good thing. However, what I have found over the years is that at sometimes you're dealing with somebody who's handling the money, who has control of the money, and ministry can become very frustrating because the individual that's handling the money does not understand how ministry works. They may love the Lord. They may pay all of their bills on time. They may know how to invest. They may be able to save money. They may be able to do all of those things, but they may not understand. They may not be on mission. They may not be mission-minded and looking for ways to further the gospel. And you come along as this mission-minded individual and you say, you know what, we want to promote the gospel in this way or in this area. We want to do this thing. And there can end up being this fight between people, you know, these two Christians who work in a church together because, man, I'm trying to make a ministry happen here, and you know, you got the money on lockdown. How am I supposed to operate? And so that's where I say I'm sharing practical info with you. Some of you are going to continue to grow and be involved in ministry. And some of you may even find yourselves in a position where you might years from now be the one hiring people for a church office. You might end up on a pastoral staff or something like that. And what you want to do is you want to pray that God would bring somebody along that's going to handle the money that's on mission. They're mission-minded. Not wasteful. They know how to save. They got a Lamborghini taste with a Volkswagen budget. And you want to get the very best that you can afford. Did you hear me? The very best that you can afford. What people do nowadays is they get the very best that they can't afford. They go into debt, credit, max out their credit cards, all these other crazy things. No, what you want to do in ministry is you want to get the best that you can afford. You want to spend it wisely. And you want to get, more bang for your buck, man. You always want to like, hey, what am I going to get for this money? I want to stretch this dollar out. I want to stretch this dollar out for a mile. But you want to find somebody who's on mission, whose main point in life as a Christian is to further the gospel. That was this individual. He was known for just being all about the gospel. Verse 19, and not only that, but who was also chosen by the churches to travel with us with this gift. So even the other churches said, no, he's the right guy. Send him with Titus. Verse 19, which is administered, talking about the gift, the money, which is administered by us to the glory of the Lord himself and to show your ready mind. So the money was being given for the glory of God, for the glory of the Lord. And then also to show the mind of the Corinthians in this, that they were giving people. Verse 20, avoiding this. You want to avoid this. That anyone should blame us in this lavish gift which is administered by us. So, see, Titus and then this other gentleman who's not named partnered up. See, because if Paul just rolls into town and says, hey, Corinthians, I'll take your collection over here, then he can be accused of stealing the money, right? Mishandling it. But if you got Titus, who's known to be faithful, he's diligent, and then you got this other individual who all of the churches go, yeah, we agree he's the right one to go with Titus. Now you got these two individuals, and if Paul's included in there, now you got three. Now there's no, that person came on their own and they stole the money. You always want to handle the money together. I over the years, obviously being in ministry, especially being in youth ministry, I've had to handle money. I do not like doing that, actually. Anytime that I can, I will give money away. What I mean is this. Don't come and try to be my friend because you think I'm going to give you money. It's not what I meant. I mean that in the collecting of money, like for events or camps or being on mission trips, I always try and get someone else to be in charge of the money. I don't have a problem with money. That's just, I used to, years ago, before I got saved, I was a straight up thief. That's the truth. Okay, but we don't have to go there. I'm not giving you any details. But since the Lord saved me, I don't really have any problems with money. It's not a struggle for me. Some people struggle with it, but I'm not tempted to steal any money. But what I want to do is I want to just kind of be I want to be out of the loop. I want to be blameless. So whenever I can, I will try to give charge of the money. Hey, you be in charge of the money. That's why oftentimes, those of you that have been around for a little while, when we're doing events and things, I'll tell you, hey, talk to Haley or give your money to Haley. So you might have even come and been like, hey, here's my money. It's just like, I'm not touching that. Go give it to Haley. Do me a favor, go give it to Haley. Especially because my memory is not always the best. And I might just go, oh yeah, I'm gonna turn that in. And then it's like later, like, oh man, where did this money come from? Man, I'm really hungry. I don't want to do that. So, hey, somebody else get it. So Paul was keeping himself blameless here and saying it's Titus and this other guy, and they're faithful. Verse 21, providing honorable things, not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of man. I love that. Paul says, look, man, we're on mission for Jesus, so we want to stay, above board. We don't want we want to be blameless. We don't want to be, lurking in the shadows with all this stuff. We want to be blameless and honorable in the sight of the Lord and honorable in the sight of men even. We want people to know that we're handling it correctly. Finally, so he told us about Titus and said that he was more diligent. And then we saw this other individual was mission-minded. Now he comes back to, now this may be, some Bible teachers think this was a third person. That's a possibility. I wonder if it's not Titus. You'll see why I think, I kind of wonder here. But look at this in verse 22. Verses 22 through 24, if you're taking notes, you can write much more diligent. Much more diligent. Verse 22. And we have sent with them our brother, whom we have often proved diligent in many things. So this is, whoever this individual was diligent in many things. Not just one, but diligent in many things. But notice verse 22 in the middle. But now much more diligent, because of the great confidence which we have in you. So this individual was not only diligent, not only more diligent, but much more diligent. That's the type of individual you want handling your money. Now, is this a third person or is it Titus? I kind of wonder if it's not just Titus he's talking about, because he already told us that Titus was diligent. And then notice verse 23, he immediately starts talking about Titus again. If anyone inquires about Titus. So I kind of wonder if this individual, he says in verse 22, this brother, he's diligent, he's much more diligent. And if you have any questions about Titus, but it might just be a third person. It might be Titus, these two other guys, and now he's talking about Titus again. So really the number really doesn't matter. What we're looking at for you and I, we're looking at the biblical principles, the characteristics that go along with this. Verse 23, if anyone inquires about Titus, anybody has any questions about Titus? He is my partner and fellow worker concerning you. That's good. I'm validating him, Paul is saying. Or if our brothers are inquired about, these other guys, they are messengers of the churches, the glory of Christ. So they're known, they're reliable people. Finally, verse 24, therefore show to them and before the churches, in front of the churches, the proof of your love and of our boasting on your behalf. So in other words, you've got these faithful people collecting the money. So he tells them, don't be shy. Give to the Christians in Jerusalem. Give to relieve their suffering. Give to help them out. Because we've got faithful people that will take your money and handle it correctly. Listen. Never being in ministry, again, I'm sharing this with you in faith, that some of you are going to continue on into ministry. Let me give you just a couple of things to remember from me personally. Number one, never worry about money. You go, yeah, but you said money, you need money in order to conduct ministry. You do. But the money was not ours to begin with. Who did it belong to? It belonged to God. If God wants us to have it, then he'll provide it. If he doesn't want you to have it, then he won't give it. And he'll work something else out. I've been watching him do that for however many years. I don't even remember how old I am, but I've been watching him do that all these years. He's always provided. Always provided. Okay? So never worry about money. Here's another one. Never lose a friendship over money. In ministry, never lose a friendship over money. If it's that big, I will empty my bank account for you. If you and I are going to get angry and hate each other over some money, please, I don't have time for that. I do not have time for that. And what do you need? You need me to write you a check? You need me to, what do you want? You want $100? What do you want me to do? You can have all of my money. I just don't want to stop being friends with you. And there have been those times in ministry, you're working with people. We're all weird. And sometimes you're going to get somebody who starts to freak out about the money. Listen, it's just not something we have to worry about. We belong to God. And what do the scriptures tell us? That God's children have never been seen begging bread. That God always provides for them. We're told that he has cattle on 1,000 hills. If he thinks I need money, then he can sell one of his cows and provide money for me. It's not worth it. The most important thing for a church, I mean, there's obviously lots of important things, but one of the biggest things is that we are unified. And if we start to fight over money, forget about it. You can have it. It's not, I do not care about the money in the first place. It's just a necessary. We just have to have it in order to conduct things. And I don't ever want to lose a friendship over that money. It's just not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it.